Coming up on this episode of the IoT Inc. Business Show.
But that's with every big data project. You need to start small, experiment, innovate, fail often, fail fast, learn from it. All the lean startup methodology comes in place when you're working with big data or IoT projects, because you want to iterate fast, you want to change fast when something doesn't work, and you can't do that with a big project.
Big data is big. It's another entire industry that's subsumed by the Internet of Things. There's a lot to consider, but it all starts with your business information requirements. What you get by transforming the raw sensor data you collect into business value you can use. In this episode of the IoT Business Show, I speak with big data expert Mark van Rijmenam to conclude our 7-part mini-series on analytics by covering the entire array of what's available.
All this and more on this episode of the IoT Inc. Business Show. The people, the business, and the technology of the next generation internet. This is the IoT Inc. Business Show. And now, here's your host, Bruce Sinclair.
Hello and welcome to the IoT Inc. Business Show. This show is made possible by sales of my book, IoT Inc., published by McGraw-Hill, and the IoT Inc. Certified IoT Professional, or ICIP, online training and certification program. Become a certified IoT professional by completing the program's 3 courses: ICIP Technology, ICIP Business, and ICIP Strategy and Digital Transformation. Details of which can be found at www.iot-inc.com. That's www.iot-inc.com.
With me today is Mark van Rijmenam. Mark is founder of Datafloq, a one-stop shop for big data. He's an entrepreneur, a public speaker, and a strategist, as well as the author of the book Think Bigger, Developing a Successful Big Data Strategy for your business. I thought Mark would be a great guest to wrap things up on our mini-series on IoT analytics. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hi, Bruce. Thank you for having me.
So it's Friday night for you. Any big plans for the weekend?
Yeah, I'm going to have some good parties ahead of me, so it's going to be a great weekend again.
Parties? Oh, so what type of parties?
Birthday parties, that sort of things.
Are these little birthday parties or big birthday parties?
We'll find out tomorrow.
Well, why don't you tell me about yourself and your background in big data and specifically in IoT? Sure.
Well, I started working in big data about 3 years ago when I first founded Big Data Startups, which is the predecessor of Datafloq. And
okay.
Since then, I've been in this area, which I very, very much enjoy, because this is the area where a lot of things happening, and big data and data is the future, of course. And of course, also the Internet of Things, where everything, when we have a connected world where massive amounts of data will be generated, has always fascinated me. So I started the company really with the idea to help organizations. And at the moment, the mission of Datafloq is really to empower organizations to create value from data, but really from a business perspective. So with Datafloq, we don't have any technology at the moment, but it's more really from a strategic point of view, advise how do you start with big data, where are the different vendors that you want to approach, events, jobs, etc.
Well, I mean, for listeners to this show, they'll know you're a man after my heart. You said the word strategic, you said the word business, you said the word value. And I'm all over that. So no, that's great. And so what drew you to big data? Did you have this in your past, or is it just something that you're interested in?
It's just something that I'm interested in. I started working, as I said, almost 3 years ago, and I've always had a bit of a good overview of the different trends in the world. And I saw big data is the one thing that's going to be big. So I want to be part of it.
Now, and what's your background? Are you a technical guy? Are you a business guy?
I'm a business guy. I have a master in business.
All right. Well, good, because we've had way too many techies on this show. Okay, besides being a business guy, besides being a party animal, what's another interesting fact
I
about
wouldn't
you
say
that
I'm
most
a
people
party
don't
animal,
know?
but
Okay. Well, you said, well, I don't know, it was another party weekend, but well, tell us something else. Tell us something interesting that most people don't know about you.
well, I enjoy traveling. I enjoy some good adventure. So a few years ago, I circumnavigated Australia on a push bike for charity,
Nice.
which was a fantastic experience and something I can recommend everyone. I like doing things off the beaten track.
I like that. Push bike. So what is that exactly? Push bike?
Yeah, it's just a normal bicycle. But
Oh, okay. So just like a
for-
one speed kind of bike, or?
Yeah, it's specifically for long distance.
Ah, okay. Yeah, no, I do I do a lot of cycling myself. I do some long distance cycling myself, but I haven't heard it called a push bike before, but that sounds good. Did you have panniers and did you camp and all that, or were you
it took us exactly 100 days to cycle over 14,000 kilometers. I think that's about 9,000 miles.
Nice.
We camped along the road, and we managed to get almost 25,000 euros for a charity here in the Netherlands.
Oh, so you also were raising money then?
Yeah.
Now you did. That's right. I don't know if either of us mentioned it, but you are in the Netherlands. So where in the Netherlands are you?
I am in The Hague, which is our political capital of the Netherlands.
Okay, and I've been to The Hague before, but remind me with respect to Amsterdam, where is that?
It's about 50 kilometers south of Amsterdam.
Yeah, that's right. I remember it wasn't a suburb, but not a suburb, but it was very close.
Compared to terms in the United States, it is a suburb of Amsterdam.
yeah.
We're a very small country.
A very small country, but a very fun country, and well, you could almost say a party country too. But anyway, it's been a long time since I've been in Amsterdam, but I think I'll be going there actually in about a month and a half on a different trip that'll be in Europe. But anyway, so as I said sort of in the intro, we've been going through a lot of the details on analytics. So how it works, getting into the mechanics of it, getting into the different types of analytics. So I thought you'd be a great guest, one, to put a business perspective on it, and to then also give us an idea of the packages. So what I want to do for this interview is I want to talk, we'll use the classifications. We'll start with real-time analytics and sort of take it from there. But if you could start with real-time analytics, maybe discuss it from a business point of view, things that need to be considered, maybe best practices, and then, what are the commercial products available? Because as we know, platforms or IoT platforms often will have an analytics component, but sometimes you may have very specific needs or they may not be complete enough for what you need to do. So I'd also like you to maybe just give us some examples of commercial products, third-party products that are available in each of the categories. So let's start with real-time analytics. Give us a bit of an overview on that.
Well, real-time analytics is a very interesting area, and actually, I wrote an article about it a couple of months ago. Why real-time analytics and the Internet of Things are a perfect match.
Nice.
That's kind of interesting. So it's
we'll link to it in the show notes for sure. Then
it was an infographic that I had found from a company, and if you look at real-time analytics for the Internet of Things. Of course, you notice that with the Internet of Things, we have massive amounts of data streaming our way, and real-time analytics enables you to analyze that data, to collect it, to store it, to analyze it, to visualize it within milliseconds, and that's of course very interesting from a business perspective because all of a sudden you get insights about your company, about your equipment, about your customers. In real time instead of every week or every month. And of course, when that happens, it does require a different approach from a business perspective, because all of a sudden, if you get these insights streaming to you all the time, you need to take action as well.
Right. So how do you do that? Like, how do you connect the dots, I guess, so to speak?
Well, I guess it really depends what type of organization you are, of course. Because if you are, for example, a manufacturer where you have where you focus on the industrial internet, or which is basically also the Internet of Things, but then from an industrial point of view, and you can start working with predictive analytics, predictive maintenance for your equipment. If something comes in real time that something needs to be done right now, it requires an action. And that's, of course, different from the past, where in a lot of organizations, reports would come in once every week, or if they were lucky, and only had to take action once every week. So this is just one of the examples that one of the items that requires a different approach within your organization.
Now, are you seeing real-time analytics hooked up to business systems such as PLM or CRM or anything like that? Or again, I'm just thinking, you're getting this data, as you said. I mean, there's a lot of data that's coming in. You're doing the real-time analytics. Perhaps you're looking for some anomaly to trigger something, or perhaps you're just looking for, going in and out of a certain segment of above or below a certain value segment. But how do you? What about on the business side? How you taking advantage of that from a mechanics point of view? Is it hooked up to a business intelligence system, or is it done by hand? What have you seen?
Well, if you talk about this industrial manufacturer, you have these systems that of course trigger an alert, because that's what it's all about. You have a predictive maintenance. Something happens in the system, and an alert is being created, and that's being sent to the person that it needs to take action. So that's something that from a business perspective, then that person needs to do something in order to ensure that the continuation of the processes that it was involved in. If you look at it from a different perspective, for example, more into the IT operation analytics, it becomes really a part of the vital infrastructure of a lot of companies, especially in the tech industry. You need to have these real-time insights in what's happening with your tech and with the IT systems to ensure that you have a continuously operational system. For example, in the banks, that needs to be operational all the time. These real-time analytics can help you to stay online all the time.
Yeah. No, and we're going to talk about predictive analytics or visualization, in a few moments. But, again, taking action on this data, is it that you're getting a text, or you getting an email, or is it actually you're hooked up to another system within IT? What have you seen? Because I understand the concept, and I think most of the listeners understand the concept of real-time analytics, and the result being some notification. Basically, it's going to be some sort of a notification. Yeah. And I'm just, again, wondering, how is that notification manifested? Is it, I've heard texts, I've heard emails, connecting up the system, maybe connecting up to another system. What's your experience there?
I've heard the same as you did.
Okay.
These are the manual triggers, notification.
Right. Yeah. Manual ones.
And then another notification is triggered, and someone has to take action. You also have the automatic reactions where notification is triggered within the system, and then the system takes action. That's based more on logic. And if this happens, then that, of course. So you can have the manual reaction where someone in the company needs to do something, or you have the system do something. And how that notification is being transmitted via text or email or whatsoever, that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, no, and I think that's right. I mean, like you said, there's the manual, there's the automatic, and the automatic, from the way that we've been looking at the technology, there's the app, and I've been looking at it from a product point of view. So there's the app that's being developed, and in that app, it will be looking for these triggers, and then it may do something to the system. If there's a closed loop, for example, it may actually go back and modify something, or it may, set some visualization. But I think that confirms kind of the intuitive thinking of manual and automatic, but I like the way that you kind of broke it into two. Mm-hmm. Now, what about some examples of some commercial products that are available for real-time analytics?
Well, one company that came to mind was Sumo Logic. I'm not sure if you know about it. They are
I haven't. No.
A pretty big company, being backed by a lot of investors as well. And they have created this cloud-based service that collects, manages, and analyzes log data in real time. So it really allows companies to analyze all their log data from their different apps, networks, systems, regardless of type, volume, or location. And that gives them information about what to do, and then an alert is triggered yes or no based on certain barriers you've set. That's a very interesting company. They're doing very well. And there's another company that came to mind, which was Chartio, and they really aim to help companies make better decisions with really intuitive and real-time analytics. So they have these dashboards that use data from different sources and show in real time what's happening, and then really from a business perspective, a user can take action, or yes or no.
Now, I mean, you brought up an interesting point. Cloud and real time. And I suppose real time is really depends on your definition, right? Because, what we've also discussed in the show is where you're doing the analytics. You could be doing it, distributed, closer to the source. You could be doing it in the cloud. And with the first company you mentioned, and by the way, we'll be listing all these companies in the show notes, so you don't have to take notes. As you're listening, we'll have them there, and then you'll click on the link. But so if you're analyzing it in the cloud, then obviously there's going to be the latency of getting up to the cloud, doing the computing, and then coming back down. So real time is really, I guess it really depends, right? I mean, on what your definition of real time is.
Yeah. If you take into account the milliseconds that it takes to go to the cloud and back, of course, for some companies that's way too long. Think of investment companies on Wall Street. They can lose a lot of money in those milliseconds.
That's true. No,
so for them, real time is more real time than for different for another company. So you're right about that. It really depends. But that's basically, I think, with everything within big data and the Internet of Things, is that everything depends on what kind of company you are and what kind of industry you're in. There are different possibilities in different industries and different use cases in different industries with different companies. And that's also what it makes so difficult for organizations to really grasp big data, because it means something different for everyone.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point, because of the amount of data also. I mean, doing the real-time analytics, you're mentioning predictive as well, which we'll discuss in a little bit further. In that case, you're going to be doing some pre-processing, and then you're going to be comparing to that pre-processed model in real time. But it depends on the amount of data too, right? I mean, if you're sending a lot of data up to the cloud, then obviously that's going to take a bit more time. And like you said, I mean, it's really difficult to get into specifics. We have to talk in generalities because there's so many different use cases.
Yeah, that makes it a bit difficult.
Yeah. And so if you're advising, for example, if someone came to you and said, Mark, we need a real-time analytics solution. We are making a product, for example, and we want to know when this product is, let's say, running out of battery or something like that. How do you guide them? Where do they start? How do you sort of take them through this path? What is there kind of a logical sequence to go through?
There is a logical sequence, but it's if they are that far already that they have developed the product and they know they want to monitor it, then it's time to see in which. Of course, geographical location, that also helps.
Sure.
But also what are the requirements? What are the SLAs? What's really required for the system? And based on these different criteria, what's the price? Do you want open source or not?
Good point.
All these different criteria are to be taken into account for users. If I'm going to give an advice to the company. It's actually interesting to know for the listeners as well, is that this particular thing is very difficult for organizations to find the right tool.
Yeah.
A bit of promotion on Datafloq. There's a search engine that just does that.
Really?
Yeah, it's going to be launched the end of August, and it helps really organizations find the right big data solution, whether it will be for Internet of Things or any other data area, based on different criteria.
Nice. No, I'd like to talk to you, maybe offline further on this, but that's a good resource. And so I suppose by the time this episode airs, it will not be available, right? I mean, but maybe there's a page describing it. I can put that in the show notes.
Well, we'll put something in the show notes for sure.
Okay, we'll put something in there. Yeah, and I think like you said, what's most important, and again, as listeners of this show know, what I promote is very much building your information requirements in advance. And the information requirements, of course, are going to be defining the model that you need to use, the application that you need to use, and also the type of analytics. And I think the other thing that you mentioned, price obviously being an issue and somewhat related or directly related to open source versus a commercial platform. For the first two, are all things that you need to have sorted out beforehand. What I'd be interested is just talking to you again offline, and maybe we'll do some sort of a follow-up. But the information that you're looking for, I'd be very interested to know, the criteria that you need for your search engine, just to see if it lines up, just how you're looking at it and the type of information. But we can do that at a later point.
Sure.
Specifically on the two companies that you mentioned, are these open source? Are these open source companies using open source database technology, or are they, closed source, or I should say, just regular vendor based?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe they are regular vendor based. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but as we've both said, that's an important part to consider as well. All right, let's shift gears. So real-time analytics, let's go into descriptive analytics. And, descriptive analytics, there's probably different definitions. One of them is visualization. I think that's considered in there. Taking a look at data, making a model, a mathematical representation of that so you can describe it. So again, let's do the same thing for descriptive analytics. Discuss it from a business point of view, what needs to be considered, best practices, and then I'll prompt you on the products as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, it sounds good. Well, what I always, if I need to explain to people the difference between descriptive analytics, predictive analytics, and prescriptive analytics.
Yes.
Perhaps I'm jumping a bit too much into the show, but I think it's interesting to give that explanation, because when you look at descriptive analytics, it's always as looking behind, looking into the history. You're driving a car and you're looking in the mirror and you see what has happened. That's descriptive analytics. Everything from a second ago to 10 years ago.
Yes.
Predictive analytics is really looking out of your front window to see what's happening and trying to predict what's coming ahead of you. And you use all the data from the descriptive analytics that you have as well to build a model to predict what's going to happen. And prescriptive analytics, which is basically the future of big data as I see it, which is still in its infancy, but it's really building an infinite amount of scenarios of what's going to happen, and based on those infinite amount of scenarios, you make a decision, and the system is going to recommend or even take action for what needs to be done. And that requires a tremendous amount of data. And a good example of a product that does that is the Google self-driving car. Because they use a lot of prescriptive analytics to understand where should the car go to and which route should the car take. So these are the three differences between the three different types of analytics which are out there, of which, of course, prescriptive analytics is the most fascinating one.
Yeah, no, and I like that, because we haven't really touched that much on prescriptive analytics in the show. We've broken it down maybe incorrectly, but real-time analytics, descriptive analytics, and predictive analytics, but very much so prescriptive analytics, like you say, is similar to predictive analytics, except for you're closing the loop, right? Yeah. I mean, you're looking at a bunch of different predictions, and then you're actually using algorithmically, you're making a decision based on those different predictions to take a certain action. Yeah. And I like that. So you see this as being the future of big data in general?
Yeah, because of course the objective is what we see right now is you want to predict what's going to happen. You want to predict which customers you need to attract. Sure. You want to predict which price you need to state. You want to predict when something breaks down. Of course, the future.
And this takes it one step further, and it kind of actually incorporates it algorithmically to do those predictions, and then make an action that you don't even have to be involved in, correct, right? I mean, or that the user doesn't even have to be involved in.
Correct. And that's fascinating, I think, and the possibilities in that area are just endless, I think.
They are. All right. Well, I want to get to that, but let's go back to descriptive analytics, and I think to descriptive analytics, and I think that you had a good perspective on it, looking in the past. Even though the past could be, you said a second, it could even be a half a second or less. It's still in the past, because sometimes there's real-time descriptive analytics, but it's not, as we were saying, it's not really real-time. But descriptive analytics, okay. From the business point of view, what are you looking at? Does it depend on the problem that you're solving, I suppose? Is there any general guidelines that you can give our listeners to when they're, if they do need a descriptive analytics solution, what should they be, how should they start on this journey?
Well, for me, descriptive analytics is basically just business intelligence.
Okay.
Reports on what's happening within your company, reports on the sales of your products across the globe, the reports on your customers, how they're behaving on your website. To me, that is business intelligence, and descriptive analytics is business reports that help you to make better decisions based on the data that you have. And of course, the more data that you have, you can combine them with each other, and the more and better insight you get out of it.
And where does visualization come into play? And
well, I think
how to visualize
visualization is extremely important in this area because it really helps you to play around with what's out there and to better understand how the different data sources are connected with each other. So there are a few companies, of course, probably you're familiar with them. Tableau software, one of them. Does a great job, and Clear Story Data as well. These are two visualization companies that really are able to combine a lot of different data sources and visualize that and give the user the possibility to play with it and to understand what's going on and to dive deeper into the data, but visually. And that's the thing of descriptive analytics. It helps you to dive deep into the data to see what had happened, but then visually.
Yeah, no, and I think, I kind of look at it from the perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're using it, like you said, you can have these reports and they can be number-based. You can actually develop models and they can be mathematically based. And these are discrete representations. However, when you do a visualization, instead of using the mathematics to kind of come to some conclusion, using the brain, and sometimes the brain has a lot higher capacity to kind of make correlations between what it sees. Obviously, you need a good package that you can go in and out of all the different dimensions to be able to do so. But is that a good way to kind of look at it? Visualization is kind of using the brain to process it, and then, or you're, mathematically representing it, whether it's in charts or mathematical equations. Is that a good way, or is there more to it?
I think so. It helps you making better decisions by giving you the tools to discover what's going on. Some people call it discovery analytics. You discover what's going on within the data. To have a better understanding about your company, about your business, about your processes, about your whatever, and then by visualizing that all that data, you really can grasp it and better understand it, and by that you are able to make better decisions.
Yeah. Okay, well, you've mentioned Tableau and Clear Story Data. Now, these are more on the visualization side. Are they all visualization based, or are there kind of any on the other side that we talked about, like the modeling, putting a model on something that happened in the past? Are there any packages you can recommend or that you can mention there, or is it more, this is visualization is kind of more covering it?
For me, visualization is more covering it, but that's just my perspective. I know a few other visualization companies, but for me, this is the most important thing. I'm not on top of my mind. The modeling companies.
Yeah, no problem. And I think you're right. I think all in all, when people talk about descriptive analytics, they're generally talking about visualization. But it should just, everyone should just have in mind that there's also different ways of describing things. Not just the visualization. Like we're just talking mathematically, and whether you're graphing it or whether you're displaying it as an equation, but somehow you have to take action on that. Yep. So I suppose if it's done mathematically, then you're really going to be feeding that into maybe what we're going to talk about next, predictive analytics, and using that mathematical model for predictive analytics. But before we move on to predictive analytics, anything else you want to talk about on descriptive?
No, I think we've covered what I wanted to say about it.
Good. Okay, so let's talk about predictive analytics. We've talked about predictive analytics in the show. You just mentioned a couple use cases. The big one, of course, is predictive maintenance. But let's talk about it a bit more from a business perspective. When someone wants to do predictive analytics, and the reason they know they want to do predictive analytics is because they thought through the information they require. In the case of IoT, all incremental value of an IoT product really comes from the intelligence that you can gather by transforming the sensor data.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it comes down to. So if you look at it from that perspective, again, we're going to start with the business intelligence requirements, and we're going to go down from there. They're going to know that they're going to want to perhaps predict when something's going to fail. They want to maybe predict the time of something. I guess, time is that basically the major dimension, or are there other things that we should be considering predicting?
No, I think there are multiple dimensions. Time, location.
Right.
They're really. It's not only about when something happens, but also where something happens and how something happens.
Good point.
So it's really more multidimensional. The sensors and all the data that streams from it can be really multidimensional to see what's going on and make prediction from there.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of cut you off earlier, but from a business perspective, what are we looking at? What's important? What should we be considering when we're thinking about incorporating a third-party predictive analytics package?
Well, I think what you should be aware of this is typically these projects are not that easy to implement. And
okay, I've heard you say this a few times, but anyway, keep going.
And they can get out of hand quite fast. I know a very interesting use case from the UPS. I'm not sure if you've discussed it in the previous
have
podcasts.
Not. No.
But UPS for them their big data / IoT project is a $1 billion project.
Wow. Okay.
So that's what I mean with they can get out of hand. It can be really big. But what they've done is, which is very interesting, is they have installed all kinds of sensors within their cars to monitor how the cars are performing and to see how the driver is driving, and to see how they can improve that, to see if they can improve or reduce the fuel usage. But what's more interesting is that they start combining that sensor data from the trucks with all kinds of other data, such as weather data, such as fuel price data, such as traffic jams, such as packages where they have to go, etc. And based on that, the system calculates the optimized routing for the trucks. And in addition, if the sensors note that something is about to break within the truck, and that's where you have the predictive maintenance, the system incorporates it in the routing that the driver needs to stop at a maintenance shop for fixing the problem, thereby just costing as little time as necessary. So, fascinating example of the extreme possibilities of big data in combination with IoT, of what's capable when you start combining the data from your sensors, and then you're using multiple sensors, and when you start to combine it with different data sources.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great point that you're making, and something that the listeners have to consider is it's not just the data coming from the sensors. We call it, I call it external systems. Attached to the network fabric, external systems, are in my mind they are third-party analytics systems, but they're also services like from the weather company, as you were mentioning, or they could be pricing where you hook up to an information service. It could be, again, we were talking about business systems, so it could be your PLM, your CRM, and it could be other IoT products. For example, other cars, and in their case of UPS, it could be other vehicles. So that's real important. I think number one point is that consider when you're looking at all the analytics, really, it's not just the sensor data. Sensor data is probably a big part of it, but it's not just that.
Yeah.
The second point is the out of hand, very fast point. And I don't know, there are 80 best practices here. I would think logically you would just want to, start small and expand from there.
Absolutely.
But how do you, is that the extent of the advice, or is there anything more that you can add to that? Then?
No, well, I think the main thing is, if you want to start with IoT, is start small, start experimenting, start to get going. I think that's very important, and because there are so many different factors that are involved with an IoT project, as we just mentioned, that if you want to do it at a large scale, you for sure you're going to lose it. Right. Really, and
start small, think big.
Yeah, and that's with every big data project. You need to start small, experiment, innovate, fail often, fail fast, learn from it. All the lean startup methodology comes in place when you're working with big data or IoT projects, because you want to iterate fast, you want to change fast when something doesn't work, and you can't do that with a big project. So and big data and IoT also requires a different way of working, as we already discussed at the beginning. It requires a different approach, different culture. So if you that also needs to grow when you start working with your big data or IoT project. So starting small, starting to get involved all the different people within your organization, and slowly expanding from there on. That's the best way to go, on my perspective.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think you've hit on the two different points. Yeah, start small technically, think big, but start small, because I think if there's only one known, it's that things are going to be different than what you thought, and things are going to change, right? Yeah. So you do that, and then you bring up another point, which is also important that we've talked about as well, is within the company. If you talk about implementing this within the company, start small. Yep. Again, do not involve a whole business unit. That's not going to work. You cannot do it by committee. You're going to start with one guy. He's going to be the founder. Then if he's a technical guy, he's going to bring on a business guy. If he's a business guy, he's going to bring on a technical guy. And then there's two of you. And then you're going to iterate on this, and you're going to iterate on it, and you're going to build a team internally. It's a good point, and it's important to keep in mind.
And then the biggest organizations, what they do is they put this outside of their company. So, for example, Walmart, they have Walmart Labs.
That's right. Yeah, that's true.
Where they take it out of the company, give them all the freedom and really the startup methodology, go play, and then they come up with these fantastic features. So that's the way to do it.
No, I agree, and there can't be the pressure of the P&L. There can't be the pressure of the quarterly end. Whether you go as to that extreme where you start, absolutely like incorporate a different company, or whether you just have a startup within your company, same thing, right? You need to insulate that team, start it small, and then grow it from there. Packages, third party. Can you give us some examples of some third party products that do the predictive analytics that we've been just speaking about?
Yeah, sure. One of them that I came up with when we talked about UPS, and the company Transmetrics is interesting.
Oh, okay.
It's a company from Europe, and what they are doing is they're trying to predict the freight within transportation companies to optimize it. So
very specific. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very specific industry specific example, but I like it very much because the predictive analytics software that they are developing, and which is available as a SaaS product, really helps transportation companies to predict their shipping volumes.
Nice.
The software learns, I believe, it learns from past shipping histories and uses external forecasts to make these predictions. Really, the things that we just explained, and it really gives them it helps transportation companies to save money and by predicting the right freight that they need to transport. Very interesting example of how you in a very specific industry can take a benefit from predictive analytics.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Any others that you can let us know about?
The company Infer.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
No, I'm not either. No, I'm learning a bunch today.
They deliver data-powered business applications, really to win more customers. Also, a cloud-based solution, really focusing on different signals from the web to predict where your next customer will be. So predictive analytics to find new customers. For example, for e-commerce websites, for e-commerce companies, it can help them to find new segments in different areas that they didn't think of before. So with predictive analytics, it can really help you to gain new customers.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing a little predictive analytics on what you're saying, and I'm thinking back our last guest, Anil from Qualicent Analytics. They do predictive analytics, but it was very specific on manufacturing and finding defects on the manufacturing line. The last two that you mentioned, Inform and Transmetrics, again, they're very industry specific. Is that the trend? I mean, is it that when you're looking for a predictive analytics solution, you need to look for one that's within your industry, or are there more, or can you go with a more generalized package as well?
Well, I think I would go with a more specific package because
if there is
one, of course, and otherwise you have a generic one that you need to tailor towards your industry, because as I mentioned, every industry has a different approach, requires a different approach. There are different requirements for different industry. The financial industry needs different data sets than the retail industry. And energy industry needs different from the car manufacturing industry. So it really helps if you have a more specific, tailored company or package that knows the industry, that has data scientists that understand the specifics of a certain industry. I think that really helps.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think what it's telling, our listeners is, to first look in your industry, maybe use your search engine. That might be one way to do it. But look within your industry first, see what's there, and then also consider the generalized packages, but knowing that you're going to need to customize them, in some way or form. And you may need a little bit more data science, IP, in your company to be able to use them. But that's that's a good perspective on how to look at it. Prescriptive analytics. I know we've sort of touched on that, but it seems, just to go back again, real-time analytics and descriptive analytics, that almost seems independent of industry because of the functionality that it's performing. Predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics almost seem, like you were saying, very more specific. And I mean, certainly if you can find a more specific package, then it sort of gets you a little further. Yeah. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a few companies that work with prescriptive analytics that have developed prescriptive analytics algorithms and packages. And one of them is IATA. And you see with IATA is they focus predominantly on the oil and gas industry.
Yes,
because a lot of data is involved in the oil and gas industry. Finding new oil wells or maintenance predictions on the drilling on the drills. So that requires a lot of different data sources to make those predictions and to really understand what's going on. So IATA has built these prescriptive analytics packages predominantly for the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, and any others? Any other prescriptive analytics package that you can use as examples?
No,
it's okay. I mean, it's pretty cutting edge, and it's pretty, it's pretty new stuff. But I think the point remains the same, and the same point that we were just talking about is that, look in your industry, but don't discount, generalized analytics as well, because, sometimes a custom solution might be better for you. It just may be a little bit more work, within the company. However, one way or the other, my advice to companies that are looking at analytics and looking at the modeling and looking at the apps is this is stuff that you have to do in-house. This is not stuff that you should be farming out. This is my perspective. This is the intellectual property the other stuff, the plumbing, the network fabric, the sensors, all that, sure. I mean, a lot of that you can farm out. Yeah. But when we're talking about specifically, when we start getting to value and specifically how we're going to get that value through information, then that's the stuff you need to do in-house. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to need some form of data scientist in-house. Now, whether that is to use a customized prescriptive or predictive analytics package, or to maybe even go a little bit further and customize a general one, I think that's an important. I don't know if you have a different or anything else to add to that, but that's an important consideration as well. You're going to be doing this in-house. If you're developing an IoT product, or you're bringing IoT into your company to help make it more efficient or drive some different sources of revenue, this is something you need to bring in-house. Is that your view, or do you have a different view?
Absolutely agree with that.
Okay. All right. So we're on the same page with that. All right. Well, there's at least two of us that agree on that. But no, I think just logically speaking, again, when you're talking about value and when you're talking about, I always look at things from a product company perspective, building an IoT product, only because you can look at it from many different ways. But again, if you're building a product, there has to be some intellectual property there to differentiate yourself. Yeah. And analytics being, one of the three horsemen, I've mentioned it before, analytics, in my vernacular, modeling, which again is related, and then app development. These are three that you need to bring in house. All right. So I think the last thing I want to talk about real quickly, and maybe it's really independent, but we did touch on this, but distributing the analytics. We've talked about fog computing, cloud computing, and obviously everything in between, even sensor computing. There's some platforms now that have a little bit more from the embedded system point of view, a little bit more horsepower, memory, and so forth. What's your perspective there from, a big data perspective? Is it, again, just based on the use case? Everything's open, all options are on the table, or is there any guidance that you can help us with when we're looking at, making these buying decisions, whether we are, where we're going to put the analytics, I guess is the question.
Well, it's a very important question, because if you have a lot of sensors that generate a lot of data, which in some industries that happens.
Some of them do.
You get the question, how are you going to transmit all that data? And then the question is, do you want to transmit all that raw data back to your cloud, whether it's a private cloud, a hybrid cloud, or a public cloud? Or do you want to do some analytics on the sensor using or using fog computing to do it more locally, and then transmit the data?
Right.
That's a very important question that you need to ask yourself. How much data will my sensor generate? And can I deal with it? Sending, transmitting, and receiving the raw data, or do I need some sort of analytics, some sort of screening to be done locally? Because otherwise it becomes too much. I've seen examples. I forgot the names of these examples, but where they did just that on the local system, on the sensor, do some analysis to remove 90% of the data and only send on the 10% that's really valuable.
Yeah, no, and I think that is an issue that has to be considered. However, I think when considering that issue, you need to look at it holistically, because there's also the potential future loss of information if you don't keep it all, right? Yeah. So there's a balance you have to make in the sense of there's the transmission cost, then there's a storage cost, and then there's going to be the computational cost of moving that data. However, if you do some local analytics, and by definition, that kind of means that you're going to be filtering the data. Whether there's going to be some sort of, there's going to be some filter, and we'll talk about it from a general point of view. That means you're not going to be storing all the raw data. If you don't store all the raw data, then at some point in the future, you're not going to be able to use it. And so it's not an easy question, but there is that balance, right? Of keeping that original data, because once it's gone, and you're not going to be able to monetize it. You're not going to be able to use it for any other purpose. However, that being said, I think a general statistic is, at least today, only 5% of data is being used, is being acted upon. So it's not easy, right? I mean, I don't know if you have any experience in this with your clients, but any advice other than being very general what we just said. I mean, it's just consider all these different things.
Yeah. There's not much that I can add to that because it's going to get boring. But it depends on the type of company, the type of project, the type of industry. So you really have to define for yourself what is important. And again, as you mentioned, all these cost issues for you as your company, you have to determine what is important for you. You want raw data? Fine, but that's going to cost you. Do you don't want that? That's fine, but then you're going to lose something out in the future.
A potential opportunity cost.
Yeah, and that's something that you have to look into. And these decisions, they might look very small now, but they can have massive consequences in the future when you've built the wrong system. Yeah.
And interestingly enough, however, they're a gut decision because you don't know, right? You don't know what's going to happen in the future. And so it's really a gut decision. And I guess maybe it's a budget decision. You save as much data as you can budget for. I don't know. But yeah, it's just important for everyone to keep that in mind. Yeah. All right, Mark. Well, that was really good. I really appreciate your perspective on it. I like that we're aligned on the value and the business and so forth. Where can people find out more about you and your company? Where should they go? Well, if they go to datafloq.com and then with the Q, that'll be in the show notes. Yeah. They can find all kinds of information on big data, on the search engine will be there. Events are there. Information about me is there. Also on Twitter or on LinkedIn, we can connect. There are a lot of. I'm quite visible online. Okay. Well, we will get all your coordinates and we'll put them in the show notes in case people want to follow you. I also noticed that you have a course, which seems really interesting to me on your webpage. So yeah, visit Datafloq.com. We'll put in the show notes. And with that, I'm going to thank you and have a good weekend. Thank you, Bruce, and thanks for having me here. Good job, man. Good job. Good. Glad you liked it. Yeah. How do you think? You think that we covered this stuff okay? Yeah, definitely. I think we covered everything that we wanted to cover. So I'm happy about it. Yeah, super. All right. Well, this is it just depends. This is either going to come out next week or the week after that. But I'll definitely send you all the information, and we're going to be, on social media. We're going to be promoting it. How many people do listen to it? Well, there'll be almost 10,000 people. Okay. So it's a big number. I mean, big number. It's a big number for very specific technology. But yeah, I mean, and it's a long tail, right? It just keeps on over time. I have episodes from 6 months ago. I mean, every day they're getting like 30, 40 listens. So. I think this will be good. And and I'm interested. Yeah, like I was saying online, I am interested. In finding out more about your search engine. I think it's an awesome idea. And in particular, I'm really interested in how the data that people would be typing in, like what information are you looking for to make these recommendations? Well, so, I don't know, if at some point I wouldn't mind if you could share some of that with me, so I can just take a look at it and maybe share it with my audience as well. Yeah, well, it's going live next week. It will be. Oh, okay. Well, then it will be actually live then. By the time this comes out, then. Yeah, it will be. I will announce it a few days later. Okay. But yeah, it's on August 24th. It's out there. So. August 24th. All right. So 10 days from now. So it'll be the Monday of the following week then, basically, right? Well, we can also augment the show notes. Even if this is either going to come out most likely the 19th or 20th or the 26th or 27th. I'm not sure which one. But even if we don't put it in the show notes at that time, we can add it later. It just means that we won't get the initial people, because there's two types of people, right? There's people that are subscribed that are automatically going to get this downloaded to their phone. And then there's the people that haven't subscribed yet that will obviously, when they hear it for the first time, it'll be there. Yeah. So, well, for me, of course, the best would be on the 26th or so. Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah, I'm gonna know more later today, so I'll be able to tell you kind of the schedule as to the timing. But yeah, I mean, I also have also have some other considerations because I have a sponsor now for the show.
Okay, very good.
And so that's a good thing, my first one. And so they want to, they also have a consideration of when this comes out and so forth. But I'll know when a podcast comes out. So it depends. So I guess what it means is if I'm doing another podcast, then this will be on the 26th. If I'm not doing another one, then this will be on the 19th. So it just depends, and I'll know that later. I'll know that in 1 hour and 15 minutes, more or less.
Okay.
I'll have the conversation.
Well,
all right.
Sounds good. Well, yeah, just let me know when it's out there. I will share it as well.
Okay. Yeah, I certainly will. Yeah, and I'll provide you like a little graphic, and you can use that. And I'll be looking out then for the search engine. I'm really interested in how you're going to do it, because that is a problem. It really is one. And I think the point that you brought up, which is a good one that we haven't really talked about up to date, was this whole vertical, having a specific predictive or prescriptive analytics package for a vertical industry. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, are you going to take that in consideration as well for your search engine? Or
people can really search based on categories, based on industries, based on open source, yes or no, based on the funding they've received, based on the size of the vendors, based on geographical location, based on anything.
Yeah. Good. So you've done what I'm doing right now. I'm producing a database of different IoT technology companies, and I assume that's what you did. And then once you have it in that database, you can queue it in a variety of different ways.
Yeah. So there are about 5,000 companies in the database. So that's.
Are you serious? Yeah. Wow. So did you? Is this all by hand that you kind of found them, or is there did you find a repository, or how do you? 5,000 is a big number. Holy. It's
a combination of automatically and artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence too. Wow.
No, artificial intelligence.
Artificial.
That's basically mechanical term.
Not really artificial. Then is that what you're saying?
No.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you go. I know it's later in your day. Have a great weekend. Have some fun birthday parties. And when I said big and small, what I meant was, it is a children's birthday party or is it an adult business party?
It's a friend of mine.
Oh, then it's a big birthday party. That's
a big birthday party. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be in touch.
Perfect.
Catch you later.
Thanks. Bruce, and have a good weekend as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. That was a good talk with Mark van Rijmenam. This podcast goes vertical, deep diving into different topics each week. If you prefer a more horizontal and structured approach to learning IoT business and its orbiting technologies, check out my book IoT Inc., published by McGraw-Hill, or become a certified IoT professional by completing the ICIP training and certification program. For details, just go to www.iot-inc.com. Also go to www.iot-inc.com for an analysis of this episode, links to things that were mentioned during the episode, and very importantly, the episode's PDF transcript. Just search for the name of the episode or the guest. If you're new to this podcast, subscribe. That way you'll get every week's episode delivered straight to your device. Or, if you've been listening for a while, there are 3 ways you can support the show. You can leave a rating or a review on iTunes. Just go to iot-inc.com/iTunes. It only takes 1 click to leave a rating, a little bit longer to leave a review. You can share it on social. I'm on LinkedIn, to a lesser extent on Twitter. And of course, you can support this show by buying my book, IoT Inc., or the ICIP training and certification program. It's how I pay the bills. Next week's episode is Producing the Digital Twin for the Industrial Internet of Things with Dmitry Volkman. I hope you can join me then. I'm your host, Bruce Sinclair. Thank you for listening. Till next week, may your path to IoT business be a big one.
You have been listening to the IoT Inc. Business Show.